Here is Avi Shleim, Iraqi Jewish Israeli historian Avi Shleim of the New Historians, writing for the Middle East Eye, saying, why I support the UK taking a more nuanced position on Hamas. The government wants to distinguish between the group's military and political wings, a policy that ended with a total proscription in 2021. The reputation of Hamas sank to its lowest point after its attacks on October 7th, in which 1,200 Israelis and foreigners were killed and 251 taken hostage. In Israel, this attack provoked a tsunami of anger, strident calls for revenge, demands for ethnic cleansing of Gaza, and a national consensus in support of the total eradication of Hamas. The results have been the longest, deadliest, and most ruinous war in the history of the Arab-Israeli conflict. Hamas is a social movement and a political organization with a military wing, the Al-Qassam Brigades. The military wing was prescribed by the British government as a terrorist organization in March 2001, and in November 2021, former Home Secretary Priti Patel added the political organization to his list of prescribed groups. This decision marked an abrupt reversal of the government's previous policy, which made a clear distinction between Hamas's political and military wings. Patel, a staunch supporter of Israel, argued unconvincingly, in my opinion, that the distinction between the two wings was no longer tenable. For its part, Israel has always denied that there is any difference between the two wings. In August 2017, as Secretary of State for International Development, Patel went on a trip to Israel, accompanied by Lord Polak, honorary president of the Conservative Friends of Israel, and a major fundraiser for the Tory party. You might recognize the Conservative Friends of Israel, I believe, or no, it was the Labor Friends of Israel. One of them was outed as a pedophile recently. She had previously served as an officer of CFI's parliamentary group between 2011 and 2014. While pretending to be on private holiday, Patel held 12 secret meetings with high-ranking Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Upon her return, she asked her officials to explore the possibility of diverting some of the foreign aid budget to enable the Israeli army to carry out humanitarian work in the occupied Golan Heights. She was subsequently forced to resign for concealing the nature and purpose of her trip to Israel. In 2019, then Prime Minister Boris Johnson rehabilitated Patel by appointing her as Home Secretary. Johnson shared her Manichaean view of the Middle East struggle, in which Israel represents the forces of light and Palestinians the forces of darkness. The change of policy towards Hamas was announced not by the Foreign Secretary, but by the Home Secretary. Patel said that designating the whole of Hamas as a terrorist organization should be seen through a domestic prism. It would help to protect Jews in this country. This argument is baseless. Hamas does not carry out operations outside of Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories, and it has no presence in Britain, and it poses no threat to British Jews in this country. Hamas's 2017 document of general principles and policies, unlike the 1988 Hamas Charter, explicitly distinguishes between Judaism as a religion and Zionism as a political project. You will never hear that, though, from people. Okay? They love talking about the 1988 Charter. It affirms that Hamas's conflict with Israel is due to the occupation, not religion, and states that it would accept the creation of a Palestinian state within the 1967 borders without recognizing Israel. Hamas has now instructed Riverway, a London law firm, to make an application to the Home Secretary to remove the government's designation of the movement as a prescribed terror group and recognize its legitimate role as Palestinian resistance movement engaged in the struggle for self-determination and liberation. The application is made by Mossa Abu Marzouk, the former head of Hamas's political bureau. I am among 19 experts supporting this legal filing through reports on the history and context of Palestinian dispossession. My report describes the central role played by Britain in facilitating this dispossession from the Balfour Declaration of 1917 up until the present. Western media outlets have relied heavily on the Israeli narrative of the 7th of October, including its countless false allegations and outright fabrications, such as the story of 40 decapitated babies, while underreporting the Palestinian side of the story. One of Abu Marzouk's most significant correctives of the dominant narrative concerns the background to the Hamas-led October 7th attack. According to him, Hamas sought to achieve specific military objectives during the operation with clear instructions not to target women, children, and the elderly. Since deviations from these instructions admittedly occurred, Hamas is prepared to cooperate with the International Criminal Court and any other neutral third party in an independent and transparent investigation into the events of that day. If you recall, this is something that I stated after October 7th. I said this on October 8th, that war crimes that took place on October 7th, and there were many, okay, and a lot of them were fucking filmed, should also be prosecuted within the framework of a 75-year occupation that Israel was committed to. This has always happened in truth and reconciliation committees that have been put together in the aftermath of, atrocious forms of systematic violence. This position stands in sharp contrast to Israel's denials of journalists' entry into Gaza and its refusal to allow any independent investigation of the atrocities and war crimes committed by its forces. To explain Hamas's behavior is not to justify it. Killing civilians is wrong, period. But here, as always, the context is all important. The attack of 7th of October did not occur in a vacuum. It occurred against the backdrop of decades of brutal and suffocating military occupation. Moreover, as a people living under unlawful military occupation, Palestinians have a right to resist, including the right to armed resistance. Again, correct. In effect, labeling Hamas's political leaders as terrorists, pure and simple, gives Israel a free pass to inflict death and destruction on Gaza without being held to account. And nuanced understanding of the history, motives, and policies and principles of Hamas. The terrorist framing stands in the way of a more balanced and nuanced understanding of the history, motives, policies, and principles of Hamas. For the record, the terrorism designation is so that there is no nuanced perspective and understanding of not just Hamas, but all Palestinian people. The designation is designed specifically to stop any kind of commentary, any kind of questioning of official narratives coming from the Israeli side, because they are exterminating Hamas, and you can always get away with doing whatever the fuck you want to do. To make it illegal to even present such things. In the past, in the United States of America, the American government has quite literally designed the new designations to prosecute even lawyers that offer legal counsel to terror groups as material support. The majority of Western supporters of Israel genuinely believe this is anti-Semitic, though. I don't care. It's because criticizing Israel is considered anti-Semitism. Remembering the deaths of Palestinian children will be and is considered anti-Semitism, though. I know. But it is on us and people like myself as communicators to showcase how depraved that mindset is. Also, we are at a interesting impasse where anti-Semitism allegations are nowhere near as powerful as it once were, due to the steady effort of pro-Israel groups that have very actively targeted people who aren't anti-Semitic, but simply anti-Israel. Okay? That's why Zippy Hotoveli screams blood libel all the time. People believe it. No, you are having this is a genuine misunderstanding. There's people and then there's politicians. Politicians are trying to maintain the old narratives. People don't believe it anymore. And because there is an overwhelming amount, of people that go, okay, dude, you say everyone is anti-Semitic whenever they say, I don't want babies to be murdered. When that is the majority opinion, and that absolutely is the majority opinion now, okay, it doesn't matter. There is too much pressure for media to continue behaving in the ways that they have, and there's too much pressure on politicians to continue maintaining the positions that they have in the past. It's that simple. And for the record, I will take it one step further, and I will tell you, okay, that there is a dangerous side to the story as well. The dangerous side of the story is that people genuinely do not give a fuck about anti-Semitism, okay? Why did the majority of British Jews think that Corbyn was Hitler then? Dog, you're talking about a very different time. What do you mean? You're talking about a very different time. I know. I'm talking post-October 7, where there is a direct reversal of Israel and its position in Western society. It has become a fucking pariah state. And you're talking about people who were correct and on the right side of history before this pariah state opinion was mainstreamed. I think people are anti-Israel. I also think a lot of people are anti-Semitic. Yes, that was the other thing I was going to say. Part of the reason why people don't give a fuck about anti-Semitism allegations is because Israel defenders have weaponized that against Israel to defend Israel over and over again. The other part of the reason why, and that's why I said it's like kind of scary as well, is because people legitimately don't give a fuck about anti-Semitism, like across the board. Not even as its cynical application of like defending Israel. People just do not give a fuck about anti-Semitism. They are anti-Semitic. Okay, a lot of people are unironically fucking anti-Semitic, and the reason why it got to this point is because of that awful conflation And because of years and years of being able to design a social structure, years and years of being able to design a social structure where critics of Israel were silenced and suppressed, even if they weren't anti-Semitic. No one ever used a scalpel to address carefully who was being anti-Semitic and who was not. And once they hit that button over and over again and exhausted it, and the overwhelming majority of people's position shifted to going fuck Israel, all of those conflations between Israel and Jews became a negative association for Jews. This is what I've been saying for years. I've been saying this before October 7, and I've kept repeating this over and over again post October 7. If you don't distinguish between Jews in diaspora, Jews that live in the Western world, and Israel, at a certain point, people are going to learn that. People are going to learn that lesson. It is identical. It is identical to like a British Salafist running around and saying that ISIS actually represents true Islam, and that if you actually criticize ISIS's actions, you are Islamophobic. Okay? Imagine every serious institution in the media doing that comparison, but in a way where they think they're defending Jews. Anyway, here's what's actually unfolding. Hamas reviewing a renewed ceasefire deal as Israel continues bombing Gaza.
Late afternoon in Gaza City, Israeli warnings followed by strikes.
Terrorism designations is incredibly effective as a stopping mechanism in the West. I mean, it honestly worked on me until I started watching you. Yeah.
On residential buildings.
For the record, that's the reason why. That is precisely the fucking reason why there are many people in powerful positions that still, in a last-ditch effort, are trying to fucking deplatform the likes of myself. Okay?
The man who recorded this survived with scratches and bruising. Earlier, an airstrike apparently without warning resulted in more serious injuries. Since yesterday, large parts of Gaza City have been under evacuation order. Israel's defense minister today telling Hamas to accept the terms of a US ceasefire proposal or be destroyed. But civilians, as so often, bearing the cost when the missiles find their targets. And this was northern Jabalia this morning. The attack here came shortly before 1 a.m. while families were sleeping. Homes turned to fragments for children to sift through in search of keepsakes from life before.
People heard news about a ceasefire. Then civilians sleeping in their homes were surprised by random shelling. And here they are, cut in pieces. We have stopped calling on Arab and Muslim countries. We appeal to every free person in this world.
On the day the UN labelled Gaza the hungriest place on the planet, far-right Israeli protesters again tried to block aid lorries on their way in. The draft ceasefire plan would allow for a full resumption of aid using UN agencies, but Hamas has yet to accept it. Their sticking point, the lack of a guarantee that Israel would not resume fighting. Instead, a commitment from President Trump to a permanent resolution if Israel and Hamas reach an agreement through talks.
Yeah, I wonder why. Because Israel's like, yeah, in the first 7 days, you will give us all of the Israeli hostages that remain, and then maybe we won't keep bombing you for the subsequent, 53 additional days. But after that, we are bombing you again. They're openly saying that. So yeah, of course, the responsible party for the well-being of Palestinians is not going to fucking, one, disarm themselves, because that's ridiculous, especially amidst a goddamn genocide. What an insane question. And they're also not going to come to the fucking bargaining table if the one side is saying like, oh, by the way, this ceasefire is bullshit. Like, we're going to keep killing you, and we're going to keep killing all of the children, and there's not really anything you can do about it. Also, give us the hostages back. Who the fuck would be on board with a deal like that? After 19 months of genocide and 19 months of refusal to do any real ceasefire negotiations and violating all those negotiations, like, is it really unjust to demand a permanent ceasefire? How many deaths, how many children need to die? Israel is in desperate need of a tide-changing event at this point to try to recover the insane amount of negative coverage that it's receiving from regular people. And I don't know if there's anything that will actually restore a victimhood narrative to Israel. The embassy shooting did not change it. People very quickly turned back and were like, yeah, well, you're still doing genocide. We should probably put an end to that. And I don't know if there's anything that could change the tide shift at this point. And the worst part about it is that it's not like people became fucking pro-Hamas all of a sudden or became not Islamophobic all of a sudden, chat. They just realized because of the metric ton of violence, a lot of people were like, oh my God, maybe Israel was just lying this whole fucking time. Or, oh my God, this level of violence is completely fucking unacceptable. That's it. That was the only thing that changed this attitude amongst the broader public.
There are still some quiet spaces in Gaza. Here in her grandparents' home, 5-year-old Wad has been given a new jigsaw. But how to make sense of what has happened to her and her family this week? On Sunday night, silhouetted against flames, she managed to escape an Israeli strike on the school where she was staying. Her mother, her brothers and sisters were all killed. Her father remains in hospital, badly injured.
So far, she's not the Wad we used to know. Hopefully, gradually, step by step, we'll bring her back to who she was. We bring her toys to play with so she can forget a little. We're trying to bring her back to her senses, to her memory, to reduce the anxiety. We're doing all we can to ease the stress she's carrying.
The plan is to surround her with familiar, loving faces, as much engagement and distraction as possible until her father recovers. But in the background, the sound of drones. It's hard to block out the war. The memory that in their last 2 days alive, her mother and siblings didn't eat. Now she says she wants to buy flour so with her father they can make bread and eat together.
What happened to Wad? Do you think surviving fire like that is insignificant? To you or to anyone else? Can't the press speak out, call on the world, on Arabs, Muslims, the EU and Israelis? This girl was pulled from the heart of the fire by God, so you'd wake up and end this war.
In the meantime, Wad's extended family are trying to give her moments of joy in the midst of such profound sorrow, to start rebuilding a young life, even as the destruction all around remorselessly goes on.
Well, joining me now is Nomi Bar Yaakov, a leading international lawyer and peace negotiator who was previously director of the Middle East program at the International Institute for Strategic Studies. I mean, so as a negotiator, what do you think of the way Steve Witkoff, Trump's envoy, has gone about this negotiation?
Well, I think not just this negotiation, I think all negotiations he is involved with are tricky. I think you need experts in the actual subject matter to negotiate. And I think that proposal for 60 days is inappropriate at the moment. The war needs to end. Israel needs to withdraw from Gaza, and all 58 hostages need to be returned. So having a kind of deal whereby it's sort of sounds like it may happen, it may not. I'm not sure at all that it's going to happen. But what next? You know, you need to have experts who know that unless the end game is clear in the negotiation, and the end game has to be two states, a Palestinian sovereign state and an Israeli sovereign state, we're not going to get anywhere.
Well, that is clearly not stated anywhere, and the United States is not clear.
It's crazy because, like the experts that they're trying to bring forward are like wishy-washy two-staters at this moment. You can't put the fucking toothpaste back in the goddamn tube, man. It's done. It's over. They need to come at this with the recognition. I think they're trying to. And that's why I'm saying, like, they're going to assume the end game here, even though there is no, like, day after plan for Israel, there is already designs for a day after plan for the propaganda arm of Israel. And that day after plan for the propaganda arm is a two-state approach and liberal Zionism and going back basically to the conditions that created Hamas to begin with. The two-state solution is literally separate but equal. It sounds good to the onlooker if they are not equipped with the knowledge of what the two-state solution creates. A two-state solution, or a pathway towards a two-state solution, is simply a continuation of the one singular state that Israel has illegally occupied on all of the historic Palestinian lands in perpetuity. That's all a two-state solution is. Okay, when people say, "Oh, we want a two-state solution," the correct terminology to apply in this process is to end the apartheid, to end the occupation. Saying, "Oh, we just want a two-state solution," it's like, okay, well, that is what the argument was for years and years and years. The one guy who actually entertained that notion or kickstarted that process was assassinated by Israeli society. And supporters of his assassin are now within the governing coalition. Itamar Ben-Gvir, Bezalel Smotrich. I'm talking about the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. Like, October 7 happened because October 6 was a two-state solution.
About what the end position is, other than a Trump Riviera, and
that's the problem
in Gaza, and that is a big problem in terms of how you approach whether you should go along with this. I mean, does America feel like an honest broker?
Well, America's never pretended to be impartial. America is Israel's greatest ally. And that is why the Gulf states are taking the lead role in mediation and negotiation. And there is an Arab plan led by Saudi Arabia and Egypt. And that plan is to transfer authority from Hamas in Gaza to a technocratic Palestinian government that will be agreed upon between all the Palestinian factions, and thereafter to rebuild the Gaza Strip without relocating one single Palestinian. That plan is on the table, and that is the only plan that will lead to a sustainable solution, to a sustainable peace ultimately.
I mean, is Hamas's apparent agreement to hand over power, technocratical power, to a new Palestinian administration?
This is real.
Enough.
For the record, this is being presented by Saudi Arabia and them, but like this quite literally is something that Hamas has said yes to, chatters. Understand that much has been made of the selfish and evil nature of Hamas in Western media. Much has been made about the selfish and evil nature of Hamas in Western media. But and that's part of the reason why, in order to continue this narrative that these guys are like all selfish and they just want to dominate the Palestinian the Palestinian existence in the Gaza Strip, they refuse to actually cover a lot of the negotiations from the Hamas perspective. And Hamas has said that they will dissolve and that they will completely step aside. They will not disarm. No one, like Palestinians, will not disarm. But Hamas is willing to dissolve its political movement in its entirety, and step aside for a technocratic Palestinian controlling entity in the region. If people were truly motivated by death and destruction and like simple dominance, why the fuck wouldn't they just become the Palestinian Authority, chatters? Palestinian Authority is a perfect example of collaborating with the Israeli government and getting a lot of clout and a lot of money and freedom to travel. If if Hamas wanted simply just to dominate the Palestinian lives without actually trying to move in the direction of emancipation, they would have just basically become the Palestinian Authority. It is precisely the opposite. And that's why they fucking keep saying, oh, these guys are so selfish and so brutal and so barbaric and anti-Semitic. It's fucking bullshit.
When Israel is saying it wants to destroy Hamas. That's where it's not clear, isn't it? You know, does Hamas need to offer to leave?
Well, what does
what does
destroying Hamas mean, Christian? How do you destroy a movement? It's an ideology, and who will replace Hamas? You could get somebody far, far, far more radical. You know, it's possible. You're not going to replace one movement with a peace-loving movement with this kind of approach. The approach needs to be holistic, and it needs to look at the immediate needs, and the humanitarian situation in Gaza is beyond catastrophic, so that needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency. And then you need to build upon it, and Hamas leaders need to be given some sort of possibility to leave the Strip and hand over if we're going to get anywhere. But it's very clear they're not going to leave. They're not in control of most of the Strip at the moment. And the problem is that you're getting gangs controlling different streets. You're getting different factions, different families.
This is true.
And it's totally...
This is true. She's actually not wrong about this aspect of it. And this is Israel's design. Israel is going to the fucking criminal elements within the Gaza Strip and saying, we'll work with you. We'll give you pieces of the land. As long as you fuck shit up, as long as you steal aid, sometimes Israel gives them a military base to operate out of in a red zone. There is an IDF, Israeli Occupying Force military base, that some of these gangs literally operate off of. They give them arms. They give them gear. It's crazy. It's fucking crazy. It's ISIS affiliates that Israel is working with within the Gaza Strip. Think about that.
Chaos, and it's going to be more and more chaotic unless this is sorted out promptly.
Hamas has suggested that while it decides how to respond, it is consulting other Palestinian factions. Yes. What does that mean? Who are the Palestinian factions?
Well, no, there are many factions in Gaza and in the West Bank. They signed an agreement earlier on in the year in Beijing. I think there were 18 factions. And we're not, so it's not just Hamas and Fatah. It's not just, Hamas is in control of Gaza and Fatah in the West Bank. And there's also, I think the Palestinian population would like to see elections in Palestine, in all of Palestine. So that's Gaza and the West Bank. But there are lots of groups. I mean, I can name them if you like, but the big ones are Fatah, of course, and the PFLP and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They're the ones that are the known ones. But there are plenty of other splinter groups that are holding hostages, for example. And
there's tribal formations as well, still like big families. Not as a doubt to your point, but can you point towards some sources validating that Israel's working with some armed gangs? Yes, I covered it every single day for the past week, I would say. I think there's a YouTube video out there that you can watch where the video also has what do you call it? The video will feature evidence. But yeah, Hamas actually today shot and killed some of these guys. I can't show you the fucking full thing. Conclusive evidence of Israel running the very criminal gangs looting aid in Gaza. Hamas released footage today of an ambush against what they thought were Israeli Mistarvim undercover soldiers in Rafah. But upon closer inspection, they turned out to be the Abu Shabaab's gang, the Israel-backed warlord, drug dealer, and serial criminal responsible for the looting of the vast majority of the aid under IDF protection. Abu Shabaab runs a gang of 100 to 200 armed mercenaries who set up a military complex in Rafah with Israel's backing. In the footage, Abu Shabaab's mercenaries were walking around the depopulated Rafah, freely carrying weapons in front of Israeli troops. Currently, any Palestinian that walks into Rafah is killed on the spot. Okay? Israel protects these guys with drones. The Guardian has written about it. Haaretz has written about it. Numerous outlets at this point have written about it since November of last year. Okay? Israel is now open about their collaboration with these guys. Israel previously was covertly funding and facilitating sending arms to these guys. Now they openly fucking say it. The mercenaries were conducting surveillance activities for Israel in those areas.
Which is supposed to be under Israeli control. The UN's Sam Rose described a looted...
This lady is like kind of cooking too. She's been cooking up big steaks every day.
Valley in the south between Kerem Shalom and Khan Yunis, where they say trucks would frequently be attacked. A photo posted last week showed a Palestinian man in military gear carrying an AK-47 with UN cars visible in the background. It's more than 3 kilometers inside an IDF-declared combat zone. The picture came from the Facebook page of this man, Yasser Abu Shabab, who multiple aid officials have named as a gang ringleader, though he denies his men were involved in the looting. The new US-backed aid system has said its continued distribution on Wednesday, claiming delivery of 800,000 meals. This was the scene on Tuesday as people were unpacking the box.
The Abu Shabab clan has disowned their son. Statement from Yasser Abu Shabab's family completely disowning him for his collaboration in gangs. Statement from the Abu Shabab family in Gaza regarding our son Yasser Abu Shabab and his security group operating in Gaza. One of the biggest problems with this, when people go, oh, do you have more evidence on this? Do you have more evidence on this? Is that a lot of the stuff is coming from either outlets that you don't consider to be fucking valid, or when it's Sky News covering it, okay, they barely touch on it. So you have to tie it all together. You have to tie it all.
Gang ringleader, though he denies his men were involved in the looting. The new US-backed aid system has said its continued distribution on Wednesday, claiming delivery of 800,000 meals. This was the scene.
Like, there's a Guardian article that I read on stream a while back. There is a Haaretz article that details what these guys are doing in collaboration with the Israeli government. But there hasn't been deep dive investigative reporting from like the New York Times or the BBC, and I'm not holding my breath for that. I don't think it's ever going to happen. Let's be real, given their fucking position as major dick riders for Israel.
The president mentioned that you had to deal with all the slings and arrows during your time at Doge. There's this.
Well, some of the people, some of the media organizations in this room were the.
Yeah, Washington Post, I think, covered it as well here. Gangs looting Gaza aid operate in areas under Israeli control, aid groups say. UN memo obtained by the Post concluded that gangs may be benefiting from a passive, if not active, benevolence or protection from the Israeli military. I hope this is good enough for the chatters who were looking for evidence. When you say ISIS affiliated, do you use that as an umbrella term to say Islam fundamentalist? No, because there's fucking fundamentalists within Hamas as well. No, ISIS affiliated means ISIS affiliated. Affiliations to the Islamic State. There are obviously ISIS affiliated groups that have operated inside of the Gaza Strip far before October 7. They are, according to at least people with a lot more knowledge than myself, people who are from Gaza, people who are Palestinian, a lot of those ISIS affiliates actually operate within the Gaza Strip because Israel allows them to, because Israel sees them as a beneficial group that can be used at times as a destabilizing force, or at other times, potentially like this one, a force that you can use to dominate the region. Ironically enough, Israel kept saying Hamas is ISIS in the aftermath of October 7, but Israel has always collaborated with ISIS, both in Syria and also in the Gaza Strip. It's not the Shabab guy that I'm talking about. It's not Abu Shabab. There is another one. His name is Al-Shoni. I think it's Al-Shoni. He is the ISIS affiliate. Abu Shabab is the drug dealer. The other guy is the ISIS affiliate whose father was a direct collaborator with Israel. Abu Shabaab has also ties to ISIS in Egypt. Yeah, I think that's also true. In the Sinai, which is where he gets his drugs from, through a tunnel system underneath the Rafah border. Drugs that he sells within the Gaza Strip. Anyway, Musk, I will continue to visit the White House. Oh, wait, let me finish this. What am I doing? Here, let's finish the Hamas reviewing ceasefire deal, and then we'll get back to the drama.
It's not that there are around 18 groups officially and many more if you want to look at it unofficially. And the danger is we are going to move towards a totally chaotic situation where there is no control whatsoever unless there is an orderly transfer, which has to be part of the ceasefire moves forward.
Nomi Bar-Yaakov, thank you very much indeed. Well, joining me now is Hussam Zomlot, head of the Palestinian mission to the UK, who was born in Gaza. Ambassador, thank you for joining us. Does the Palestinian Authority want Hamas to take this deal?
Well, what the state of Palestine and the government of the state of Palestine and the Palestinian people want is to end this genocide. We do not expect a pause of genocide. This is unheard of. Genocide must be stopped immediately. And we know how to do that. We need to exert maximum pressure, not just give lip service. The international community has a responsibility to undertake to stop this 21st century live stream genocide.
So a temporary ceasefire doesn't do it?
There is no war in Gaza. War happens between two armies, my friend. There is no war in Gaza. And for the last 600 days, the world has seen that this is a campaign of mass murder, mass destruction,
It's really interesting that even now people still try to go, well, it's a war. Like, do you have no interest in thinking a little bit outside of the world that you've designed for yourself? Like, next week at this point, that kind of statement is going to be seen as genocide denial. Like, while you're at the fucking edge, now is the time to stop with this, like, oh, it's just a war shit. Okay? Because the dam has broken. And the waters are raging down the fucking, down the mountainside. And you're just sitting in the village going, nope, it's fine. Just a little bit of rain. It's crazy. I don't understand how you can still say this shit. This close out from a complete attitude shift. It was never a war, chatters. It was always an exterminationist ethnic cleansing campaign. Make no mistake. I'm simply talking about how people are still refusing to adopt the proper framework. I'm simply talking about people and their overall refusal to say the truth as clearly now it's pretty obvious that most people are no longer entertaining this like war narrative. Greek doctor Christos Georgalos on a stint in Gaza. I can't say I went to war. War is a very different thing. There was no war in Treblinka. There was no war in Auschwitz. War has two armies. Here you have a population that's mainly civilians and women and children who have no way of escaping, and bombs are systematically raining down from the sky. They hit hospitals. They hit journalists. Rubio announced that they won't grant visas to people who criticize Israel. Fuck America. America can suck my dick. America can eat my dick, okay? It's okay. Yeah, all right. Don't grant visas to fucking normal people. Continue going down this idiotic, self-defeating spiral. You mentioned the creation of a permission structure that allows the shift in media coverage. What changed exactly? The dam. The pressure valve had to be released one way or another. Overwhelming majorities in every fucking Western nation were freaking out over lack of movement from our leadership. So either you would just tell them democracy is not real, shut the fuck up, and we're just going to am Israel high our way out of this, and you have nothing to say, which would have invited even more of a militant reaction against that sort of thing. Because when democracy falls apart, when people have to reckon with the reality that our democratic elected representatives are actually not interested in representing us at all of a sudden there's opportunity for revolt. For Western leadership, especially in like Europe, where they're a little bit more sensitive about their image as the inventors of liberal capitalist democracy, they had a tough choice. Either start criticizing Israel a little bit officially through the official organs of the government, or show their public that they have no interest in the democratic process at all, that they are not responsive to the needs and demands of their citizenry. So they chose the lightest form of criticism they could possibly engage in, but that created a permission structure within the media to actively criticize Israel. That's why people like Piers Morgan came out and were like, it's a genocide. I've had it. I'm telling you, that's what it is. This is what protesters have been saying for over a year now. The West's free pass for Israel to commit war crimes has killed its credibility. If we abandon Gaza, if we consider there's a free pass for Israel, even if we do condemn the terrorist attacks, we will kill our credibility, Macron tells a top defense forum in Singapore, adding, and this is why we do reject the double standard. I told you. How long? How long have I been saying this? It's not just about saying America bad, it's proving why America is bad. And the American allegiance and Western world's allegiance with Israel has shown every single person that has been paying attention to what's going on and what the reaction is from the American government and from their own governments. It's caused people to recognize that, one, the international rule-based order has been a lie, something that we all knew, by the way. And two, that your representatives, your elected representatives, do not care about any sort of humanity, any sort of decency, any of the values that they claim to care about, that they claim to defend. Thomas Massey says, nothing can justify the number of civilian casualties, tens of thousands of women and children inflicted by Israel and Gaza in the last 2 years. We should end all U.S. military aid to Israel now. For those of you who don't know, Thomas Massey has always been a number one fuck Israel guy in Congress. This is not new. Oh, this guy's very funny. Let's see what he had to say. He's Irish, chat.